Welcome to The Dying Breed. I'm Caleb, and today we're working on Jack. Jack is one of the friendliest horses you'll ever want to meet, and he also has Ringbone. So what is Ringbone? How do we fix it? Can we fix it? And what do we do for Jack to help him move more comfortable? That's what we're going to talk about today, so let's get into it. What is ringbone? So ringbone is bone growth on the pastern joint or the coffin joint in the horse's limb. These are the bottom two joints. These would be the equivalent of the finger joints in our hand. When we have ringbone, we have articular and non-articular ringbone, which just like what it sounds, articular ringbone involves an articulating surface or a joint. Non-articular or false ringbone doesn't involve a joint surface and actually doesn't cause the horse any problems. The problem comes when you have bone growth in a joint. Once we establish that the ringbone is articular, we have low ringbone and high ringbone. High ringbone involves the pastern joint. Low ringbone involves the coffin joint. So Jack has high ringbone, which is operable. They can go to a vet, have a surgery that fuses the pastern joint and doesn't allow movement, which takes away the pain. And since the pastern joint doesn't have a lot of movement anyway, you can have surgery. Low ringbone involving the coffin joint. As far as I'm aware, there is not a surgery or anything you can really do for it. The best we can do is, put a rocker toe on or try to shoe him to make him as comfortable as possible. But there's not really a way to quote unquote fix it, right? So Jack has high ringbone, as I've stated before. So he's had the surgery. The first time he had the surgery, it didn't take, and he actually had to have another surgery. So since the second surgery, he's doing a lot better. But we do a couple of things different when we shoe him. So Jack likes to break over to the lateral toe. The lateral meaning the outside. So I take my hammer and I roll the shoe from the medial toenail all the way to the second lateral toenail to make it easier for him to break over. So I take the shoe, I get it hot, and then I take my hammer at like a 45-degree angle and I push that material back so it's rolled so he doesn't have to work as hard to get that foot off the ground. And then you'll notice on the shoes that there's a crease. The crease extends further on the lateral side. And we do that to give him a little more width and a little more support. So we give him a little lateral support is what we call it. So this is actually the foot he had surgery on. His other foot's actually not bad and didn't need surgery. So this foot actually looks pretty good. It's actually more gathered up. The other foot is starting to splay out and get kind of wide on us, and that's because he's compensating a little bit, has been since he had the surgery, with putting more weight to his left foot than he is to his right foot, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm just gathering up the toe. He's on pretty tight schedules, so there's not a ton of distortion. I believe he's at 5 weeks. I get a lot of questions like, what's the ideal? Like, how long should I let my horses go? Well, all my horses are, for the most part, at 5 to 6 week schedules. 5 being the short schedule, 6 being the longest I like to go on hooves. Otherwise, they start to distort, and it's not good for the horse, and puts a lot of pressure on the tendons and ligaments. So I'm burning the foot here. No, it doesn't hurt the horse at all. We're checking our fit. You can see right here the fit on the shoe. You can see the burn mark, and then I'll show you the heels right here. You can see right where the heels actually hit the shoe. And we're getting rid of any discrepancies we have. So we can rasp pretty flat, but flattening the shoe on the anvil and then burning it on really does get rid of any little whoop-de-doos you might have from re-rasping. Okay, and then I unseat sole pressure, and then I take my rasp and I run it around the outside a little bit because there's a little burr when you burn the foot that shows up, and you want to get rid of that when you're nailing. then we're going to get ready to nail up. So when we're nailing up this shoe, you're going to see three things. You see the shoe, you see the frog support pad that you saw when we pulled it off, and then you see the new pad that I've added on, which is a plastic, clear plastic looking pad, and that is a snow pad. So I didn't like that nail. It didn't quite climb where I wanted it to. You could even hear it when I hit it. It kind of like, it just sounded kind of hollow. So we're going to try to re-drive it. Still didn't sound very good there. You'll see I'll address that in just a little bit. So the pad there in the center, the plastic clear pad, that is a snow pad. That helps with snow balling up in the bottom of the foot. So a lot of these horses are up in high country. This particular horse lives in about 4,000 feet. They get a lot of snow, usually. This year we haven't got much of it all. So that pad right there breaks the suction of that snow getting stuck in the bottom of the foot and stuck to the steel. And if you don't have that on, they can build up like 6 inches of ice on the bottom of their foot. Super unsafe. So we put these pads on there to keep that from happening. So I didn't like that nail, and what's happening is that nail is going in the old hole. It's not wanting to climb because it's trying to go in the old hole. And it's just right there, you can see it. I'm like, well, so the cool thing is these are Con shoes and they have all kinds of different holes. So this is a great situation to have an extra hole. I just moved the nail forward just a little bit and it went right where it needed to go. Okay, that shoe's on. I apologize, I didn't get the clinching on this foot, but you can see the finished product there. Now we're going to put a pour-in pad underneath here. So I'm taking some saran wrap and I'm using it as a dam so that it doesn't spill out all over the foot, because I just really want support in the back half of this foot. So these are what we call half mesh pads. And I'm making a little dam. I really like the saran wrap. It works really great. It's quick. It's easier than tape in a lot of ways. And for stuff like this, it works great. So we're going to shoot the epoxy in. The epoxy I'm using is a soft epoxy. So we have different hardnesses. There's extra soft, soft. This one is a soft epoxy, and it also has copper sulfate mixed into it. And that just keeps the thrush to a minimum, kills any kind of bacteria or anything that we're going to have issues with in the foot. And then I just kind of put some behind there. Epoxy is kind of a pain. It seems to get everywhere. I'm not very clean. We'll shoot some into the heel here, make sure we got everything kind of filled up. And that should just about do it. So I let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we pull all the plastic out, and all we're left with is that nice little bit of epoxy under the pad right there. There we go. Now we'll move on to the next foot. So this is the foot I said earlier that's gotten bigger because it's bearing more weight because he's been compensating for so long. You can see that crease running all the way out to the heel there. And that just broadens that shoe a little bit and offers some extra support to that outside of that foot. And you can see the old epoxy in there. We just got that all pulled out. So sometimes when we work on horses, the bad leg is easier to do than the good leg. And the reason for this is it's harder for them to stand on their bad leg. Now, since his surgery, he's gotten better and better at standing on his bad leg, and he's more and more comfortable. But when he first came out of surgery, it was a real struggle for him to put weight on his left leg. Now I'm cleaning out the commissures there. You can kind of see all that dead chalky hoof. We're just gonna get that all cleaned up. And then you wanna make sure that you get those commissures opened up, especially if you're gonna cover them with a pad. You wanna get as much of that dead hoof and gunk that's gotten trapped in there, and then open it up so that it has air or copper sulfate that you can get copper sulfate in there. Otherwise you'll have the worst case of thrush in 6 weeks when we reset these shoes, or 5 weeks for this horse. Bring the heels back. Now we're gonna rasp. Now you'll notice I didn't nip on that side as much, and that's because it was a little lower. So I'm gonna rasp that flat and kind of blend it in so that that foot's nice and flat. Gather the foot up, get rid of any little hooks. And that should be just about it for rasping. Okay, so now we're just gonna address the dorsal hoof wall. We're rasping to that mark that I made. You'll see as I move my rasp around that mark where I ran my rasp around the outside of the hoof on the bottom, we rasp it till it disappears. That way we don't thin the hoof wall too much. We get the same thickness all the way around, and we're not weakening the hoof wall by rasping the dorsal hoof wall. I get a lot of comments about that on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and people don't understand that. We're not weakening the hoof wall. We're getting rid of distortion, making it the same thickness all the way around. And this time of year, I'll go to the horse with a different heat in my steel than I will, say, in the summer. In the summer, I can go to the horse with a lot colder shoe, like a lot cooler shoe, because the foot's drier and I don't need that heat to get the burn. When it's cold like this, that shoe doesn't stay hot very long. Unseat sole pressure, take the little burr off. Same steps, we do the same steps. You go to a competition or a clinic and you watch some of these really awesome farriers from around the world, they have a process that they go through. And the reason they go through the process is A, it works, but if you don't do it the same way and have that process down, when it matters, you'll forget steps and forget things like taking out sole pressure, which can be a real problem. If you forget to remove sole pressure from a shoe, that horse can go lame really quick. Okay, got 2 nails in. Kind of just checking my fit, making sure I'm happy with it. I just bend my nails over. I don't ring them off. Ringing off is where you take your hammer and take the claw, hook the nail, and then twist the hammer to break the nail, the piece that's sticking out of the hoof, off. I don't do it. I really haven't. I got stuck one time, but it was kind of a fluke deal, and it's faster to just bend them down, and you can make more consistent clinches. Make them look better, make them more uniform. I mentioned earlier that the snow pad is there to keep the snow from balling up in the bottom of the foot. What do you do if you don't have a snow pad? What do you do if you get snow and you don't really get snow and all of a sudden your horse is getting snowballs in the bottom of his feet? Florida's been getting snow and Florida doesn't really get snow. So we have a trick. We use Vaseline, bag balm, Pam, kind of any kind of oily based product like that. You can rub that on the bottom of the horse's foot and on the shoe, and it will keep them from balling up for a short period of time. So until you can get a farrier there, or until you can get them in a stall, or maybe you went trail riding and there's going to be snow where you're going, you can do that and it'll work for a short period of time. I knew an old cowboy that rode every day. He was full-time cowboy, rode thousands and thousands of miles a year, and that's what he did in the winter, is just carry a bottle of Pam, just spray the bottom of the foot, and then his horse wouldn't ball up and with snow and ice. Okay, we're about finished with this foot.
I'm trying to keep your back warm, Caleb.
Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Am I your emotional support?
Like I said, Jack is probably one of the friendliest horses I've ever been around, and not a mean bone in his body. And he will do that while I'm working on his foot, especially when it's up on the peg. He will lean around and put his full weight and ask you to hold his head up while you're working on him. Again, we're going to put a little dam. You'll notice there's two different pads on here. So I used to use the 3D impression pads or half mesh pads. And I found these Austin Edens 3D pads, and they're great. I like them better. They have bigger holes, and I think they work better because I can clean them out easier when it comes time to reset. Now I'm using a different epoxy here. It's a soft epoxy, but it doesn't have the copper sulfate mixed in. So you'll see that granular, the blue grains that were right on that shoe. I added copper sulfate in. I poured it into the foot so that it'll still have treatment. I just was out of the copper sulfate mix epoxy, so I had to add it to it. Get that all peeled out of there. This one was stuck in there hard.
There we go. There.
And that's it. That's the finished product. Looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that fit. Nails are nice and high. Well, that'll about do it for today. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments. And check out our podcast. We've got some really cool episodes that just came out. And we'll catch you all next time.